people often will they think that simple means easy.
Right.
Like there's some direct relationship between simple and easy, and it's not. This is super simple. Like, it's 4 exercises, and we're going to do a little more weight basically forever over time. But it's not easy at all. You're listening to Barbell Logic, brought to you by Barbell Logic Online Coaching, where each week we take a systematic walk through strength training and the refining power of voluntary hardship.
Welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. I am Scott Hambrick. That is Matt Reynolds. And today it's the day. It's part 3 of our Getting Started series. And today we talk about the big four exercises and why we think they're important and what they do for you. And it's everything you need to know, really.
It's weird.
You needn't go anywhere else.
It's weird how simple it is, but yet how well it works.
Oh, people can't stand it. They can't stand it.
Well, especially the fitness industry can't stand it, right? I mean, I think people, whoever that is, they don't like it either. But the fitness industry, if you have built your reputation and your business upon making things complicated and exciting and different and muscle confusion and all that sort of stuff, then this like literally just cuts your legs out from under you. And so, in the last episode, we talked about what are the criteria we use to pick those exercises. Again, we told the story about walking into a gym. There's infinite number of exercises you could do. When we apply these super basic criteria, that we're going to try to pick exercises that train the most muscle mass, not just use, but actually train the muscle mass we're trying to train, and uses the most weight over the greatest effective range of motion. Then that gives us the best bang for our buck on getting strong. Right. And we established in episode 1 why we want to get strong. And so when we take those 3 criteria and we apply it to the infinite number of exercises out there, we really just get 4 exercises that are the king of kings of all exercises. They're so much better than everything else. And that's the squat, which is the king, the deadlift, which is sort of like the queen, right? And the bench and the press, which are like the knights or something. in the game of chess, and the strength training game of chess. So yeah, that's it. And I was saying before we turned on the microphones, and I mean this is not an exaggeration. I think that if you train correctly your entire career, no matter how advanced you become, if strength training stays the goal, then those 4 exercises will make up 90% of everything you do forever. And
Agreed.
Then all of the other stuff, the extra 10%, doesn't really even matter that much. We talk about it. We talk about, okay, well, what are the other things that we should do? Some conditioning stuff or body weight stuff or chins and things like that. But the 4 main lists, if you get those right, it really doesn't matter what the other 10% is that you do.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
And that's why I think that's why people fail. Is because they just can't accept that it's actually simple. It's so simple that you just do 4 sets you do 4 exercises and then you get what you want. And they add complexity in and they add other movements in. And anytime you spend in those other movements, you're not using the most weight. You're not using the most muscle mass. You're not using the largest effective range of motion. And they confound themselves and they fail and they blame the thing, but they shouldn't.
Yeah, these lifts are, if we're just honest with people who are listening, who are maybe new listeners to this podcast, is a big part of these exercises, they're just kind of scary. For people who haven't done them before, dude, a squat is scary.
Right.
And a deadlift is scary. And specifically those 2 lifts, when I tell a stranger or just an uneducated person about strength training, somebody I meet at a restaurant, or somebody, my waiter asks me, or somebody at church or something, and I start to tell them what they need to do is squat and deadlift, inevitably, like 95% of the time, they will tell me why they can't squat and or deadlift.
Right.
Right? We hear it all the time. Well, I can't squat because I got bad knees. My knees are bad, so I can't squat. I can't deadlift because it's bad for my back.
Yeah.
I got this bad back. I got this herniated disc. I got this, and I think it comes, and I think that comes mostly from a place of ignorance, and I don't mean that in a negative sort of way. I mean, just I'm ignorant about lots of stuff, just not strength training, and there's probably lots of stuff that I believe incorrectly, not because I'm stupid, but because I just don't know any better. And I think with a lot of people, that's what you have. You have people that just don't know that. Like, why can't I just go run on the treadmill, Scott? Why can't I just like open up GQ or Cosmo magazine and or put in an Audible book and just hammer that treadmill? Why is it that squats and deadlifts are the thing?
Well, because they fill our criteria. I think there's a fourth criteria, which is about economy of time as well.
Oh, for sure.
And if you just want to get the most bang for your buck and actually get stronger, you have to move more weight. That's how you measure that you get stronger. And because we have this stress recovery adaptation thing that takes place in our bodies, the stress has to be specific to what you want, which is, getting stronger, being able to move more weight. So the stress has to be about moving more weight. So heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, presses, and bench presses are the most efficient way to do that. You could use some other exercises, and maybe you could pick. Maybe if you let's say you threw out the conventional deadlift, you might be able to replace that with 3 other exercises and also get very, very strong. But it's 3 other exercises. Our criteria are very specific and very efficient, and very economical, and they let people get strong. But they can't get bored and try something else. They can't say, I just need some variety because, I'm bored with this. No. They can't be distracted. They got to keep their eye on the prize and do the heavy work every single time. And it's not easy. Maybe that's another thing we need to talk about, is how it's just not easy. Unfortunately, I wish it was, but it ain't.
Yeah, people often will try to, they think that simple means easy.
Right.
Like there's some direct relationship between simple and easy, and it's not. This is super simple. Like, it's 4 exercises forever, and we're going to do a little more weight basically forever over time on these 4 lifts, and that's real simple. But it's not easy at all. It's weird. I was actually thinking about we will have some episodes later on in this 10-part series about nutrition and how to eat. Nutrition's the same way. Super simple, just not very fun, right? So, and I'm not talking about eating like a bodybuilder. I just mean that people that really make progress with their food, especially 85% of the time, they eat the same stuff every day.
Yep.
They get up, they eat the same breakfast, they eat the same mid-morning snack, they eat the same lunch, and maybe there's some variation for dinner. Maybe there's a little variation on the weekends. It's not about eating like a bodybuilder. It's not about steaming broccoli and chicken breast.
Blech.
But it's just real simple. And people are like, well, I want to pick from 50 different meal options and accomplish what I want to accomplish. And oh, by the way, I also want to take thermogenics. I want to take diet drugs. I want to do nope. It's really simple. And strength training is really simple too. And if we've sold you already on the idea of strength training and a better lifestyle, it is simple, but it's real hard. Nothing is harder than a squat.
Yeah, I'm tired of talking about all that. We squat because the darn thing works. It fits all of our criteria more than any of our other exercises, right? Our criteria are most muscle mass, most weight, most effective range of motion. And if you could only do one thing, you wouldn't want to press. It doesn't use enough muscle mass. It doesn't let you use as much weight. It doesn't have as long of a range of motion. You would want to squat. And that's why I think that's why people call it the king of exercises. The squat is going to do more to make you a overall stronger, more robust person than any other thing that you could do. And for us, it ain't just squatting. It is the low bar squat.
That's right.
Because the low bar squat, or as opposed to a high bar squat or a front squat, uses more weight, more muscle mass, more effective range of motion. Do we want to go into more detail about that?
I just think for beginners, So first off, a squat, most of our listeners probably know this, but in case you don't, a squat's just where you put a barbell on your back, usually behind your head.
Your back is behind your head.
True. And you squat down until your hips go lower than your knees. And you come back up. Now, there's all sorts of ways to fulfill those criteria. But the best way to fulfill that criteria is the way we teach the squat, which is a low bar squat. So then your next question is, well, what's a low bar squat versus a high bar squat? Well, high bar squat is what people do when they put the barbell on top of their traps at the base of their neck, like where that bump is on the back of your neck, right? Was that your C7, cervical 7 spine, somewhere in there?
Yeah, when you go to the gym and you just decide you're going to squat and you go get that pad, that piece of looks like insulation for a pipe, and you put it around the bar and put it on your back, that's probably what you're doing is the high bar squat. Nobody but a crazy person would just decide to squat with the bar as low as we do. Now, it's not like in the middle of your back or anything. It's just, depending on how tall you are, maybe 2 inches lower than the high bar squat, but it makes all the difference. It makes us lean over more, so we train the back more. When we lean over more, we get to use our rump more because our hips are farther behind the midline. We'll do a show in the future about squat mechanics probably. We've already done one in the past. But it lets us use more muscle mass, and lifters a long time ago found out that they could squat more weight when they got the bar down lower on their back. They didn't really know why that was, but they knew that if they could roll that bar down their back, they could move more weight. And if you go watch Ray Williams or other big-time squatters, you'll see that they have the bar low on their back. They don't have it up on their traps like the bros do at a gym near you. Now, depending on how you're built, you're probably going to lean over more than Ray, but the bar is still going to be in the same position on your back. So we put the bar down low on the back. Because it's going to be heavy, it has to be over the middle of your foot. You're just going to tip over. You're going to get your knees out, your butt back. You're going to lean over and head for the ground. You're going to hold those knees out, reaching back with your butt until your hips get below your kneecap, and then you're going to drive your ass up towards the ceiling to stand back up. That's rep 1.
Yep. And the master cue is you stay balanced on your midfoot the entire time. People who don't know how to do this will get forward on their toes or on the ball of their foot. As you start to squat down, if you feel the weight shift forward to the ball of your foot, you're doing it wrong. Yep. You got to keep your weight balanced on midfoot the entire time. So weight's balanced on midfoot. Bar's lower on your back than you think it should be. And all you do is reach back with your butt, push your knees out, and bend over at the waist, pointing your chest at the floor, but not rounding your back, right? So it is possible to point your chest at the floor, but to do so with a very flat back. We want to keep a flat back. We don't want to keep a cat back. Cat back is bad. Flat back is good. And that's it.
Yeah. One more thing about the master cue, the midfoot thing. I found that people don't know what the heck that means in practice. Here's what it means. If you stand up with your feet, shoulders width apart, and just cross your hands on your chest, lean forward, and you'll feel the weight go to your toes. You'll feel your weight shift to the ball of your foot. And if you lean forward enough, you'll actually have to take a step forward. Well, that's not your midfoot. Now, get back on your stance there with your shoulders or your feet shoulder width apart. Lean back until you feel your toes start to come up and the weight shift to the heel. And if you lean back enough, you'll have to take a step backwards. Well, that ain't midfoot either.
That's too far back.
Too far back. So then you rock, take your stance again, and you rock back and forth gently until you feel the pressure even out on the sole of your foot. When the pressure is even on the sole of your foot, particularly if you're wearing good squat shoes, if you're wearing Nike Fly Knits, you're screwed. That's the worst shoe ever built. But if you're in a squat shoe or even barefoot and you feel that pressure even out on the sole of your foot, you know that the center of gravity is centered over your midfoot. And as you squat down and then come back up, you're feeling the sole of your foot to make sure you're balanced exquisitely on the midfoot. That's what the midfoot cue means. So that's how we squat. This exercise uses the most muscle mass of anything that we could possibly do. If there was something we could do that used more, I would do it.
Of course.
The next in line is going to be the deadlift. We start with the bar over the midfoot on the floor. We're not holding it. We're not supporting it, I should say. We got our hands on the bar. We're leaned over. Our knee is slightly, our feet are under the bar and it's over our midfoot. Our knees are slightly in front of it. Our hips are high. Our back is flat. Our hands are on the bar at a shoulder's width apart, and we push the floor away and come to a full lockout with the knees and hips locked out.
You just pick it up.
Pick it up.
It's just the correct way to pick up a barbell, right?
Yep.
You've got some weight on the bar. All a deadlift is picking a barbell up off the floor correctly. That's it.
Yeah, and that stupid poster in the break room that tells you to lift with your legs and not your back, that ain't how we do
Wrong.
it. We do it right, and we make our back
with
strong.
Our back, not with our legs.
Yeah, right. We make our back strong, and we start with a weight that we can move perfectly, so our back is in no danger. And then we learn to push the floor away with our feet and come to a lock out. It may use more muscle mass because it actually allows us to move more weight, but the range of motion isn't as large as the squat.
That's right. Yep.
So we're probably trading off a little bit. We're probably using more muscle mass, but the range of motion is smaller. So most people's deadlifts are going to be heavier than their squats. But between the two of these, you're training even your fingertips because your grip strength goes up with the deadlift.
Yep. Yeah, essentially everything from the base of your neck down is being trained. The only thing that's really probably not getting trained very well is your neck and face.
Although, if you see me do it, my face is getting plenty of work.
Yeah. Purple.
But we've squatted and we've deadlifted, and we're trying to train in every muscle in our body. And we know that we haven't trained every muscle in our body in using these two because we haven't pushed anything away from ourselves, from our chest, Can
I jump in real fast?
Please.
So one of the things I think it's important here to understand is the difference between it's a semantics word, but it's the difference between saying using the most muscle mass and training the most muscle mass. So the major muscles that make your arms push and pull are the pecs, which everybody knows what the pecs are, and the lats, the latissimus dorsi, which is on the back side. It's sort of like the pecs, but on your back, right? And those get worked. They're used in a deadlift for sure, but they're not really trained because that upper arm doesn't really move through a full range of motion. And so the thing that a squat and a deadlift doesn't get us is it doesn't train the muscles that control the upper arm or the muscles around the shoulder joint, right? So the shoulder, it gets used, it just doesn't necessarily get trained. So that's how we get to the bench press and the press. So go ahead. You were about to explain what that is.
Well, we know that we need to push some stuff away from our sternum because the squat and the deadlift don't get us there. So we start bench pressing, and everybody knows what the bench press is. You lay on the bench, you take the bar out of the rack with your elbow locked. You start with the bar over the shoulder joint. You lower the bar to the sternum, and then you press it back to its original position. We all know what that is. It's probably the single most popular barbell movement, and it uses
what all the bros do.
It's what all the bros do.
It's the one the bros actually do. Yep.
And it uses a lot of muscle mass. We use our triceps. We actually use our biceps. When I bench heavy, my biceps are sore AF. We use our back. We use our abs. When you learn how to use leg drive, you'll actually use your legs. And if you're Matt Reynolds, you pick your head up off the bench as you lower the bar down, so you're using your neck. If you're me, you push.
Bad.
If you're me, you shove your head against the bench.
Also bad.
Also bad, and train the back and neck. But it uses a great deal of muscle mass as well, and it fills a deficit that we had if we only use the squat and the deadlift. So we do that one, but we need to do something else because we still got some body that's not being used. And
or trained. Used, yes, but trained, no.
That's true. So we, after some analysis, we found that we need to do an overhead press. Some people call it a military press. Some people call it a standing press. We just call it the press, where we have the bar in our hands somewhere between our chin and our collarbones, depending on how long your arms are and how you're built. Elbows are bent. The bar is at the bottom. Take it out of the rack like that. press that thing out directly overhead. When you're at lockout, your elbows will be locked. You'll be shrugging at the top, and the bar will be balanced exquisitely and beautifully right over your midfoot. And then you get bend the elbow, get your elbows in front of the bar, lower it down to its original position, and do it again. We do it for 3 sets of 5 because the squat, the deadlift, the bench press don't do for us what that one does, what the press does. How about that?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, those are the 4 lifts. So the 4 lifts are the squat, the deadlift, the bench press, and the press. And then we just train those 4 lifts every week in the beginning. So if you're listening to this and you've never done this before, and you've never really trained those lifts, right? And maybe you haven't done them since you were in high school athletics, or maybe you've probably never done them correctly, then we basically come in and we squat and we do 3 sets of 5. So we do 3 sets of 5 repetitions. We warm up, and then we do 3 sets of 5 repetitions with the same weight. And then we move on and we do either the bench press or the press, also for 3 sets of 5 repetitions. And we usually end with 1 set of 5 on the deadlift. And we talked about this last episode. Come in a couple days later, do the exact same thing you did 2 days before. The only difference is the weight will go up on the squat and the deadlift. And if you did the press on day 1, you'll do the bench press on day 2 or 2 days later. Also 3 sets of 5. And it's that simple. And we do that 3 days a week, like on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, or a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday schedule. And we don't add anything else for quite some time. We don't add extra exercises. We don't necessarily do pull-ups and chin-ups and push-ups and dips. And all those things are valuable exercises at some point down the road. But even down the road, those 4 big lifts are going to make up 90% of your training forever.
What are some of the movements that people think should be done, that people try to sneak in, that different programs try to enter in here for the novice, Matt?
I think for the lower body, the leg press is probably the first one that often people will do, and they'll often substitute the leg press for the squat,
right,
or in lieu of the squat. And the leg press just doesn't work as well, right? So certainly the hips and the knees and the muscles that control the hips and the knees get a pretty good amount of work on a leg press, but the leg press is on a track. And the back isn't loaded on a leg press, right? So you're sitting in a chair, and so your body is only loaded from the hips to the bottom of your feet on a leg press, whereas in a squat, your entire body from wherever the barbell is sitting on your back is loaded all the way from that point all the way down to the bottom of your feet. And so your back has to work. So a leg press isn't going to get your back stronger. And then they'll often throw out the deadlift because they're scared that they're going to hurt their back. And again, we have the injury rates for different sports. And if you think about how many people perform these lifts wrong, which is 99.9% of them, the injury rate is still incredibly low. As a matter of fact, it's one of the lowest in recorded across all sports, even when you do it wrong.
Yeah.
But when you do it right, it's just almost non-existent to the potential of getting hurt here. And so, for lower body, those are 2. That's the leg press is a big one. Of course, any machine work gets thrown in. And then for the upper body, there's a lot of body weight stuff that gets thrown in. So they'll throw in stuff like pull-ups or pull-downs or chins or dips. Every guy on earth does curls, no matter how much we tell him not to. He'll do curls. And there's nothing wrong with any of those exercises, right? Like chins and pull-ups and dips and push-ups and curls and even a leg press. There's nothing wrong with any of those things, but it comes back to that criteria of most muscle mass, most weight, greatest effective range of motion, and also those overarching programming principles that we talked about last week of simplicity. How simple can it be? We want it to be as simple as we can. Intensity, we want it to be as heavy as we can. And economy, we want it to be economical. And as soon as I move from 4 exercises to 8 exercises, that's not as economical anymore, right? And so we want to respect your time in the gym and get you the most bang for your buck in the least amount of time.
Yeah, and it's not just about that as well either. That's some of it. It's not just that. The the client that's in LP, in linear progression, as a novice, their body is having to undergo some enormous changes. It's like a second puberty, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, it's
maybe not, but you're undergoing a lot of changes. It takes a lot of resources to recover from the heavy work that you're doing and exhibit, and then exhibit this adaptation that we want. And anything that you do that isn't in direct service of training that strength in the most efficient way is going to it's going to hamper your recovery and end LP earlier. You will be less successful with LP. So if you
think you got to get up and run around your neighborhood 3 or 4 times every single morning because you need to do some sort of cardio, that's going to be a problem, right?
Yeah, or even if you think you want to do add the leg press in, and that's going to make your progress go faster, or I don't even know. I can't even conceive of the stuff that people want to do.
I want to play in the Tuesday Thursday men's basketball league.
Yeah, even that,
right? Because I want to be in good shape.
Right.
Like, no, there are times for the men's basketball league. I'm not. If you want to go do that later down the road, you should. It's fine.
I don't approve, but it's fine.
Yeah. So, but in the beginning, these 4 exercises are where it's at, and anything you do beyond these 4 exercises is going to take away from your progress.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Let's talk about this cardio. Time and time again, I have clients come to me because they've heard the show or whatever, and they want me to help them get stronger. And we do their first session. Takes a couple hours for me to teach them the big 4 lifts and set forth some programming for them for the next couple of weeks. And they all say, well, what about cardiovascular conditioning? And I always tell them, and I'm telling you, dear listener, the same thing. People that say that you won't get any conditioning with our program have never done the program.
That's right.
When you're a lady and you weigh 145 and you squat 135 for 3 sets of 5, you're going to be huffing and puffing like you can't believe. If you're a dude and you squat 225 for the first time and you weigh 185 pounds, you will not believe how it just taxes your cardiovascular system. The same thing with the deadlift, and the same thing with the press. There is an enormous burden placed on your ability to use energy and replenish that energy when we do this. And you will find that there's a lot of conditioning actually built into our programming. It's essentially high intensity interval training where our intervals are heavy sets of 5.
Yep. And
a novice is going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hit intervals, heavier and more intense than anything they've probably ever done, unless they were like a collegiate sprinter or something like that. So there is an enormous conditioning effect that takes place in LP. If you don't notice it in your first weeks, well, you're not going to notice it. It's not heavy enough. But by week 6, it's going to get your attention, and then you'll know the truth of what we're saying. So don't worry about your conditioning. It's coming. We just got to get enough weight on the bar. We know that you can do kettlebell swings and get some conditioning work, right? Well, kettlebell swing is just this weird kind of dynamic goblet squat kind of a thing. Well, instead of swinging a 35-pound kettlebell, what if you did that same movement for 3 sets of 5 with 285 on your back?
That's right. Yep.
Enormous cardiovascular benefits in doing that. So that is coming. You just ain't got there yet.
Yeah, in the first episode of this series, we talked about how strength makes all of the other physical abilities better. But we talked about it really from sort of a theoretical standpoint. Yeah. And now that we've laid out the actual 4 exercises, you can actually think about practically what that does. And you just explained that from a cardiovascular standpoint. But other people sometimes go, well, I wish I could jump higher. I wish I had more power, right? Like, well, power is just strength expressed quickly. And the expressing it quickly portion is mostly genetic, right? You can't get where you can express your power much faster over time. Like you're just kind of, you can thank your mom and dad.
Yeah.
But what you can do,
the person who can fire more motor units at once wins. And there doesn't seem to be a way to train people to use more motor units.
That's right.
That's kind of hardwired. In fact, it is wiring. It is wiring.
Yep. Yeah, it is trainable, but it's got a very low, like you can only increase it maybe 10 or 12%, like it's not very much, right? And so, but if you think about this idea of power, power is still very dependent upon force production. So if you're not very athletic and you don't have a very high vertical, your vertical isn't very good, just like you. You can still become more powerful because you can increase your force production. So if power is a measure of force times distance over time, is that what power is? What is power? Is that right? Did I say
Force
that right?
times distance divided by time.
Yeah, so I said it right.
Yep.
So I can't change the time, and I really can't change the distance because that's based on anthropometry, but I certainly can change the force portion of that. And so you can get more powerful. If I want to be faster, being fast is about force production, right? Again, if you're not very fast when you sprint, you're never going to be Usain Bolt. But once we teach you how to sprint correctly, how would you ever get faster if you don't get stronger? Getting stronger makes you faster. Your balance gets better. Your accuracy gets better. Your mobility, for somebody who hasn't ever done a full range motion squat to full depth, and they squat to full depth, their mobility gets better. And we can do all of these things outside the weight room, and we can theoretically make our mobility better, or we can theoretically make our cardiovascular conditioning better. But we're not going to get stronger when we do that. Right? We go to yoga, I get more mobile, but I don't get more strong. If I get strong with full range of motion squats, I also get more mobile. This is the point. So you can start to practically see how these four main exercises actually make everything else better. Now, do they make it better to the furthest degree? No, right? The idea there is, will I get in better cardiovascular shape or better cardiovascular conditioning, or will my body become more efficient at energy systems by strength training? Yes. Will it become efficient enough for me to run a half marathon? Okay, probably not, but that's not what we're trying to do right now, right? We're trying to get you strong because the point is that strength will give you a better quality of life than anything else will. It's voluntary hardship. It's confidence building, and because it's the way we interact with the world around us is via force production and strength, then it allows you to interact with the world in a better, more efficient way. And later down the road, if you decide that strength is not the primary goal because you're already strong, I actually don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is somebody who decides, well, what I really want to do is I just want to be really good at yoga or really good at marathon running, having never walked through the fire of strength. Because strength will make it all better, period.
I don't know what else to say about that. If you care about yourself, if you respect your time, if you've tried and failed, if you have done other things and not gotten the results you want, it's probably because you weren't doing this. So let's simplify our program. Let's quit trying everything. And let's try 4 really efficient, really effective movements here, and let's do it for 6 weeks as hard as we can and see what happens. I guarantee you, if you've never done this before, if you're an untrained person, if you're a novice, and you do this for 6 weeks, you'll be stronger than you've ever been in your entire life.
Yeah, and if you want to see exactly how we perform those lifts, email us at experience@barbell-logic.com, experience@barbell-logic.com, and say, send me the 4 lifts. And we will send you videos on exactly how to perform those 4 lifts. And then if you want, you can actually try it on your own, video yourself, and we'll give you feedback totally for free, absolutely no commitment on how you did on those 4 lifts. So if you're an absolute newbie, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, and there's not a good coach in this town, and let me be honest with you, there's probably not a good coach in your town. All those personal trainers at all those big box gyms don't know what they're talking about. So send us an email. Watch the videos on how to perform the lifts, and then perform the lifts, video yourself on your cell phone, and send them to us at that email address at experience@barbell-logic.com, and we'll walk you through what you did right, what you did wrong, how you can be better next time, and we'd love to help.
This stuff works. Stop making all these excuses to try other shit. Let's get out there and do the things that we know that work. They've been tried and true for, I don't know, getting close to 100 years now. This is what the strongest people that walk among us have done. And it'll work for you too. If you're 75 years old and a grandmother of 8 and you weigh 115 pounds, it will make you stronger. If you're 6'5" and you weigh 395 and are overweight and been struggling with your glucose and insulin sensitivity, this will make you stronger. It works every single time it's tried. And if it hasn't worked for you, it's because you haven't tried it yet. Or if you did, you didn't try it properly. So, go hit it. And if you need some help, we'll be glad to help with that experience at barbell-logic.com email address. So reach out to us. Don't flounder by yourself, right? Get some help. You can do that there with that experience email. You can also tag us on Instagram, and we can look at your lifts if you do that. And reach out and get some help, guys. No man is an island. Yeah.
Next week, I was going to say we'll tease out next week a little bit. So for those of you who listen to this, like I'm not sure what equipment I need to get started. One of the most beautiful things about strength training is that the equipment, much like the training, is very simple. Simple, it's effective, it's not very expensive. Matter of fact, for the cost of what you would spend on a decent, semi-nice treadmill, you can put together an entire strength training gym in your home.
Yep.
And so next week we'll talk about the equipment that you need to get started, and we'll break that down for you.
There's another Barbell Logic podcast. Please send this to that friend of yours that's been floundering around in the gym with his German volume training and his leg extensions and his leg press, and we will help bring them to the gospel of the 4 big movements. All right? It's time, guys.
Let's do it.
Talk to you soon.
Woo!
Kablooey.